Okay guys, we are starting section 2.5, so this is a new table of contents, reasoning in algebra and geometry. So this is where we're going to start seeing proofs. And we're going to start seeing proofs fast and pretty much in every section from here on out. So this video is strictly giving you all the properties that you are going to need right now, okay? Now, the properties you will need, but you also need to remember your postulates and your definitions, okay? So, the properties, postulates, and definitions are fair game whenever you're completing a proof. So, the first properties I want to talk about are just properties of equality. A lot of these you already know, so I'm just going to fly through them, but you still need to have them in your notes. Okay, addition property, well, if you add something to one side, you have to add it to the other. Subtraction property, if you subtract a number from one side, you have to subtract it from the other. Multiplication property, are you catching up on the pattern? If you multiply one side by a number, you have to multiply the other side by a number. And then we have the division property. If you divide both sides by a number, or if you divide one side by a number, you have to divide the other side. Notice it also says that C cannot be equal to 0. Well, if you think about it, you can't divide by 0, so duh. Now, the next three are ones that are new to you and also need to be put in your note cards for definitions. The first one is the reflexive property. So that's just saying like 5 equals 5. Okay, I think of this as kind of like a reflection. It's a mirror. So obviously, if you're looking in the mirror, you see yourself. So of course you are you, because that's what you see. So reflexive property is something equaling itself. The next one is the symmetric property. All that's saying is you can flip-flop a equal sign. And you've been doing this solving equations in algebra probably the whole time. So if you had 5 equals x, you knew you could flip that and say x equals 5. That's the symmetric property. Third one is the transitive property. That's saying it's kind of like you're just inserting different variables. So if a equals b and b equals c, well, b is included in both of those. We take the b part out, we can just say a equals c. Okay, those three need to be in your definitions. Alright, and the last property of equality is the substitution property. So if a equals b, if you have a somewhere in the equation, so like a times 5, then instead of having a times 5, you can have b times 5. Okay, next, this is kind of obvious. Distributive property, well, whatever number's on the outside gets distributed to everything on the inside. You can do that with addition and subtraction. And then properties of congruence. Okay, this is pretty much strictly geometry properties. Okay, so congruence just means that you have the congruent symbol. So the properties of equality, you had the equal sign. So properties of congruence, you have this congruent symbol right here. So the first one is reflexive property. Okay, same thing. 5 equals 5. Okay. Now you're saying that line AB is congruent to line segment AB, or angle A is congruent to angle A. Symmetric property, if A, B, C, D, you can switch the sides they're on, okay? But now instead of an equal sign, it's just a congruent sign. And then transitive property, still AB is congruent to CD, CD is congruent to EF. Then we can say AB and EF are congruent. Just take out that CD middleman, okay? So properties for reflexive, symmetric, and transitive are the same. It's just if it's a equal sign in between, it's a property, reflexive property of equality. If it's a congruent symbol, then it's reflexive property of congruence. Okay, you will need to know those for proofs as well as postulates and definitions. So that is all your properties for this chapter. So moving on to video number 2, walks you through a couple of proofs. I'll talk about that in the next video. So move on to video 2.